Welcome back to the Awakener, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Awakener. I'm pleased to have you with me. I got the Insider with me. Insider, how are you?
I'm doing great, Awakener. How are you?
Good. We have so much to talk about today. So much. The world is rapidly changing each and every day. Hunter Biden news. We've got the elections here in Toronto. Let's go. First of all, we got to start with Hunter Biden because everybody wants to know what's going on. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's really surprising that Hunter got indicted. And it's really a joke. He'll avoid jail time, and it's like a slap on the wrist. You see people are really upset. They're saying that black people who got charged with something similar, like gun crimes or drug crimes or whatever,
went to jail for like 20 years.
Exactly. And the president's son didn't. But like you and I were talking, it looks like the Republicans in the House are going to continue. They're saying outright this is not stopping them just because his charge. There's many more things to investigate. So this is not the end of the road by any stretch.
No, I think it's just the beginning, actually. If anything, it proves that Hunter Biden is a shady individual. Everyone's going to know he's a shady individual, as we know he is. Self-admitted shady individual who's pleaded guilty to tax crimes. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. The reason why all this is happening is because, as we know, there's a counterintelligence operation going on behind Hunter Biden, behind Joe Biden, as we talked about. And the FBI is doing whatever it takes to stonewall this information from coming out and drip it out so slowly. And we've been over why that is. But just to remind you, it's because, well, thousands and thousands of nuclear missiles sit on the other side. And it's a very dangerous time. And this is why the truth is going to set everybody free, or set the world free and change the world. This isn't the end with Hunter Biden. More stuff is going to come. I believe the Republicans basically have everything they need right now. If anything, nothing is going to slow down their investigation now because all this is taken care of. It's only going to increase. And people at the FBI, like Christopher Wray, are like, they could be impeached any day now. Articles of impeachment against Christopher Wray because his documents that he submitted do not match the charges against Hunter Biden. Nothing makes sense. And as we told you on the Awakener, there's a counterintelligence secret operation that's happening under Hunter Biden and Joe Biden right now that we've detailed in this podcast. This is like the beginning of the Great Awakening. What do you think?
So I'm in agreement with you. I think that this is just the start of everything. The right has been saying, Hunter Biden, when's he going to be indicted? Hunter Biden, has been talking about this for years. And all of a sudden, now something has happened. So it kind of shuts the left up. They know that something is going on. They know that Hunter is not clean. Now they can't hide behind a veil of Joe and Hunter are being attacked by the right unfairly. So it starts opening up the door where they have to accept and realize that there's issues with Hunter. And as it increases, as it progresses, that's when I think the left is slowly going to be woken up to what's really going on within their own government.
Right. So should we detail for our listeners this counterintelligence operation we've been talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I think you should, especially for new people that have just joined recently.
Okay, so if you want to follow, what is happening is very, very simple to understand. Barack Obama was a traitor. He even called himself a traitor, a renegade, openly. That was his Secret Service code name. He did things that would affect the West to basically put the West within a millimeter of being taken out by the enemy. That is, the enemy has access to, as you know, SARS viruses, other biological weapons, our own uranium, our nuclear technology. And we know the Chinese were after the nuclear secrets as early as 2016 that we know of, because an engineer that was connected to a Chinese corporation, energy corporation, was indicted. And this all relates to a huge, massive counterintelligence operation that's going on now that has been covertly happening over the last 6 years. This is because the truth of what is happening is, I would say, national security reasons. The truth cannot be exposed until everything is put in place and everything is ready. Basically, Barack Obama put the West and the USA in a position and did so much damage where Russia and China had the means to basically take her out and destroy her. That is, if you think about it, someone's own uranium, someone's own technology, you could create something that would not be traced back and could do maximum damage to the United States of America and the Western world without any trace back to China or Russia. And this is extremely dangerous time. Things have happened a certain ways because the U.S. military complex has been put in a situation where they have no choice to do what they're doing, which is running the shadow operation underneath Biden. The shadow operation has been running under Hillary too, we talked about on this podcast. And this constant drip of information is going to lead people to understand the truth and why things are happening. So Hunter Biden's indictment, it's not really an indictment. It's more like he's basically admitting that he's a shady individual, hasn't paid his taxes. So this is like, okay, well, now we know that Hunter Biden is corrupt. So the next thing that's going to happen is not going to be a big surprise to anybody. The Republicans have everything they need. They have everything through their investigations to lead up to what is actually happening, which is the FBI and the military are going to have to reveal that there's a counterintelligence operation that has been covertly happening over the last 6 years. And once that happens, we're in trouble. I mean, that's really the truth of what is going on. What do you think?
So do you think that China or Russia will pull the trigger once that happens and start World War III?
Well, the understanding of what is happening is that the enemy holds power of us because they are covertly blackmailing and extorting a select group of politicians. These politicians in the Western world are doing grave damage to us through an agenda that's disguised as good, but it's actually harming our national economy, our livelihood, a plethora of reasons why. You can see it right now with what Trudeau is doing in Canada. Right. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And as this kind of spreads throughout the Western world, when people understand this, it's going to ignite red pilling like never seen before. Now, the enemy requires these politicians to pass this agenda to us. It's because they cannot defeat us in an open war. They cannot defeat us in our belief structure and how we have freedom. And everyone here would fight for their freedoms. And back there, half the country hates their own government. There's nothing to fight for there. So this is a war. This is a struggle that's been happening on this earth for basically hundreds of years, but in the modern era since 1945. And the enemy seeks to get us. This enemy cannot defeat us once their politicians are unraveled, which means that once we understand the extortion, the blackmail, once we understand the operation, then it's lights out for them. They won't be able to defeat us. The ship turns around. You can already see we're starting to reject the standard agenda, the norms, and the ship is starting to turn around. And once the truth starts to break free, it's game changer.
Well, yeah, there's no question. You can see that there's a big change this year in particular. There's a big change. I mean, look, just a part of the woke mindset out there, the whole backlash against the pride movement and the transgender movement that's happening both in the US and in Canada. It's really a game changer that this is the first time we've ever seen something like this.
Right.
And then the other thing that I've noticed that's really funny is that, one group of people that the woke community tries to rally around is the Muslim community, and they use this term Islamophobia, etc. But now all of a sudden you see the Muslim community banding together, attacking the transgender and the LGBTQ pride movement and everything. So the two sides are attacking each other. Now they can't attack the Muslims for attacking them, or else they'd be Islamophobic. So this is the first time we've ever seen different aspects of the woke agenda coming and attacking each other. And I want to add one more thing to your point. I agree with you that there are some politicians out there that are, they have dirt on them and they're using that on them to be their pawns. But I would say there's also a number of politicians out there, and I'd say Trudeau is one of them, that truly believe in this woke New World Order agenda, and they believe that it will be a better world for everyone once there's basically human slavery, and they're at the very top.
Right.
They believe
Communism.
that they're the elite.
Right. They're full-on commies. They believe their agenda. They believe their ideology. Some of them are being blackmailed and extorted to do, an agenda that benefits the enemy, which we've talked about. Some on the conservative side as well, as we know.
Yep.
And this is something where this great awakening, once people know kind of the battle here and how that the enemy doesn't have any control over these politicians anymore, it's really going to be like lights out for them. At this point, they're going to see over the next 50 years, because this is all about time, right? Like you can't just turn around the ship. You can't turn around a nation. You can't turn around the Western world over a period of 6 months. This is something that takes like 16, 20 years to do. So this is a long game. So like strategic analysis of where the United States of America is going to be when we all reject this wokeism and the standard politicians who are passing climate change, all this nonsense, is we're going to be powerhouses. You agree with that, right? If
I
we all
agree.
went back to natural gas, oil, energy independence, we're going to be powerful, correct?
Absolutely. Well,
So
all the intelligence, all the inventions are coming from the Western world. They're not coming from these third world countries that are being used as cheap labor. They want to turn our countries into third world countries so that everybody is broke and poor, and only the elite own all the resources, all the modes of production.
right, and this struggle or this covert kind of tug of war that's been happening in the world since 1945 has been happening underneath the water where people can't notice it. But we've been pointing it out on this podcast, this battle that's been happening, and it's getting to the point where it's going to bubble up pretty soon. The Hunter Biden case is going to be an interesting case because we talked about it, how it's going to kind of expose this struggle for everybody to see. So it's going to break the surface of the water. People are going to notice it. And like you can really dive in and kind of see the struggle everywhere, including the election here in Canada, in Toronto, which we can get into right now if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think we should talk about both the Toronto. I'm assuming you're talking about the mayoral election, but I think we should also be talking about. There's been 4 federal by-elections that just happened this week, and the media is the media is in Trudeau's pocket, so they're twisting the narrative and misinforming people. But we can start with either one, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, it's a war, right? So if you understand that it's a war, it's a covert war, and you kind of read into that way, you can kind of see what the enemy's doing. Now, as we know here in Canada, in Toronto, elections are paramount. If elections are won, they're usually settled in Vancouver and Toronto, correct?
These are bellwether, like Toronto in particular is bellwether because Toronto has the most number of seats federally than any other area in
Right.
all of Canada. And the province of Ontario has 1/3 of all the seats in our in our parliament.
Right. So controlling Toronto is a huge
It's
deal.
huge. Yeah.
And it would be very imperative to probably have a very controlled communist mayor in power before kind of elections took place. You would agree?
Well, let's put it this way. We had our previous mayor, John Tory, who was the head of the Conservative Party provincially in
He's
Ontario.
a fake conservative.
And the moment he became mayor, within a very short period of time, he felt that he had to flip to the left, and he became super left wing. So that just was a disgrace. And now the front runner, which you're talking about, is Olivia Chow,
Yep.
who was born in Hong Kong, and basically, I mean, you watch her and you think you have a communist spy heading our running in as the mayor. There's over 100 people on the ballot for mayor of Toronto. Many of them have fallen out. Many of them have no chance of placing anywhere. And unfortunately, the conservative candidates are kind of split between a few. So you have, what people don't understand is Olivia Chow, she was married to the former leader of the NDP, Jack Layton. She used to be a municipal councillor in the city of Toronto, as well as her husband. Many, many years they lived in Ontario housing, like government housing, low rent housing, and they were making 6 figures as both of them as councillors living in the city of Toronto. They knew how to scam the system. She has openly said that she has had the blessing of the Chinese consul general from the People's Republic of China here in Toronto, because the big concern is she's from Hong Kong. Maybe she stands for Hong Kong, but clearly she stands for communism. And she's a big proponent of the NDP, which is our National Socialist Party. So this is her agenda. She's openly says that if she's the mayor, she's going to raise taxes by 20%. She's going to do all sorts of crazy changes to the city. She's going to turn the city into Portland or San Francisco. She's just going to destroy it the way all these radical left-wing mayors in the U.S. have destroyed their cities.
This is the most consequential election in Toronto history in a long, long time. And everything that's happening south of the border, which is like the Chinese influence is starting to come up in this counterintelligence operation on the Bidens, that clearly hasn't revealed its face, is totally affected by what's happening here in Toronto. Think about things in perspective, okay? So you have also these right-wing individuals that are running for mayor. There's a plethora of them. Whether you're center-right, in the case of the former police chief, or you're all the way to the far right, Chris Sky. The fact is that there's so many right-wing people that are running right now and all these ideas. And before Olivia Chow come in, they had basically nobody that was going to win this election. They almost had to put Olivia Chow out there. So we talked about this in privately. Out comes the communist-controlled, person. Boom, they're put in there, win the election. I predict that this is going to be the biggest election in Toronto where the most turnout, I think, in a long, long time. And then you have this guy called Gong, I believe his name is, which is really like funny because I don't think anybody's voting for him. I don't think that I think he's signaling that something is really, really wrong. And everybody knows to vote for Olivia Chow. That's kind of embedded in Toronto right now. It's like almost signaling for a sense, because everything that comes to pass in the next few years is going to be really, really paramount. Toronto is a multinational city. It's watched all around the world. They do not want to have a right-wing, person get into office to lead their mayor, the mayor here in the city, and to kind of turn the city around. They don't want people to witness all around the world that Toronto has lower crime. They don't want to see people have, more harmony, all these things, lower taxes. They don't want this. And with the elections coming up, when Trudeau's going to try to, retain power as best he can, having a mayor controlling the city, basically where the elections are kind of solved here in Canada, is a huge paramount thing. This is no accident that Olivia Chow is running. This is no accident that Gong is putting all his signs all over Toronto. This tug of war is already happening as we speak. It's just not open yet.
Yeah, so to give everybody some background on this Gong person, he has a pure mainland Chinese Mandarin name, and he has advertised, he's put signs all over the place. Now, signs cost a lot of money, not only to print, but also to have installed.
What are they, $5 a sign?
The large signs are more than $5 a sign, more than that.
He's spending like what, $10 a sign. He's put out how many signs? He spent like $1 million or $2 million on signs.
I don't know what he has spent, but where is he raising his money that he has not only done that, but he has done a regular banner ad on CP24, which is like the local news channel. He has a banner ad running there, and he has his name Gong and his number on the ballot, which is number 44, which is a very smart move because there's, as I said, over 100 people on the ballot. So he's identifying with people and saying, I'm number 44, so just look for 44 and check mark that. But where is he raising his money? No one's heard of this guy before. His signs are all over the place. He's doing ads on television. You're not going to raise money like that. There's something fishy about this.
That there's something very, very fishy. It's very, very imperative that, the communists take control before this election happens, before the truth comes out, because they are not going to want to go away. And everything is on the table for them to retain control when they start to get removed from office. Because think about it this way, they're going ahead with their agenda, their plan over like the past 6 years. They're doing it in a way which is kind of like they'd be smarter to back off and just kind of reorganize for a few years, but they're not. They're going away with it. Well, at the same time, people are noticing it. At the same time, you have like another operations happening to kind of wake people up and expose this. At the same time, you have the truth that's slowly bubbling to the surface. It starts as a little ripple in the bottom of the ocean, and all of a sudden the bubble's starting to come to the surface. And you get the tiny little bubbles that are already starting to happen before the big bubble happens. And the truth is really going to change the entire world. I don't know how to describe it. It's like our enemies have always dreamed about having the Western world. The Western world is in peril right now. I mean, because of Barack Obama and how he changed everything backwards and everything he did, this is why things are happening the way they're happening. The military establishment of the USA, in a sense, has been backed into a corner. And it has to do what it has to do to ensure the survival of the Western world, which is like really horrible to say that, but this is exactly what's going on.
I agree with you, and I would actually say Obama was the perfect plan for the communists, but I think our audience have to be realistic that, the reality is this really started the moment George Herbert Walker Bush introduced the concept of a new world order. And then it was continued on with Clinton. It was continued on with Bush, the son. It was continued on with, and really brought to fruition with Obama. But these plans have been in the works for decades. And whether the person was Republican or Democrat, it really didn't matter until Trump came along. It really didn't matter because they were all basically in on it, and
Right.
they
They
were
were
all part of
all
the plan.
covertly controlled, all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they pass their agenda little by little by little by little. And then, it's very obvious what's going on. This is like the strategic undo of Barack Obama's presidency. They're not really, listen, I still believe Hillary will eventually get her time. Joe Biden's going to get his time. Everyone's going to get their time. But the fact of the matter is this is not being done for Hillary and this is not being done for Joe Biden. Everything that's happening is to get Barack Obama. It's that simple. Barack Obama was the one running this operation, and Hillary and Joe Biden were surrounding him, right? There's a counterintelligence operation underneath to strategically undo Barack Obama's presidency and to deal with the consequence of his presidency, which is our enemies are salivating right now to take us out. They have a plan to take us out. They're going ahead with this plan while a lot of people are noticing something's wrong. And the wizards and the warlocks, the people who actually, are working underneath the president, who believe in Western values and, populating Western freedom all across the world, are like, well, you give us no choice but to do this. And at the end, there's no truth for anybody except on their time, Brian. Does that make sense?
Yep, I get it.
Because the truth involves national security and the future of the West.
Right. So do you want to talk a little bit about the by-elections, or should we talk?
Let's go to the Patreon now. You can subscribe on the Patreon at theawakener.ca. Let's go there now.